Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at a collection of dialogues focused really on just one thing, the non-dual realization of the self.
Right. It's a deep plunge into the philosophy of Advaita Vedanta and the actual practice of jnana yoga.
We're going to set aside all the biography, the history, and really focus laser-like on the raw insights.
Exactly. The nature of reality, the illusion of the self, and the actual mechanics of how you do this, how you practice self-inquiry.
So our mission for this deep dive is to analyze that framework completely, to give you the full map to the absolute as it's presented in these conversations. Let's just jump right in and establish that foundational framework.
We absolutely have to start there. We have to start with how Maharaj just dismantles our entire view of reality.
He really does.
He sets the stage with a simple, observable fact. He says, look, the world you see, all these forms, the endless variety, it's all just made of 5 constantly changing elements.
It's dynamic, it's shifting.
Relentlessly. And it's governed by cause and effect. I mean, this is the universe that physics describes, but that's only the beginning of the story.
And this is where the really radical part comes in, the part that hits you immediately and just forces you to rethink everything. This physical causal universe.
Yeah.
It's not objective.
No. He calls it a correlate. It's entirely a correlate of the observer.
What does that mean exactly? A correlate.
Think of it this way. The world is perceived exclusively through your senses and your mind.
Right.
Right. So the reality you experience is, by definition, completely subjective.
It's not the thing in itself.
Precisely. It's a direct parallel to someone like Kant. The idea that time, space, causation, these aren't independent, objective realities floating out there.
They're filters.
They are the mental categories, the lenses that your mind automatically imposes on this, raw, formless experience.
So we're not actually seeing the world as it is. We're seeing the world as our own mental operating system presents it to us, and we're confusing the filter for the thing itself.
Exactly. That is the core illusion, the fundamental mistake. We just assume that the existence and the form of the world are inherent, that they're stable.
But he argues they're entirely dependent on the mind that's doing the perceiving.
Which makes our perceived reality inherently unstable, dualistic, subject and object, and ultimately completely illusory. You're mistaking your own mental architecture for the fabric of the universe.
Okay, so if that entire subjective world is unstable, a house of cards, what's the one solid, undeniable truth we can actually anchor to?
It's the simple, unconditional certainty of the feeling I am. In the original text, it's yes.
I am.
You can deny your name, your past, your future, even what your eyes are seeing right now. But you can't deny the pure state of existing. And this pure I am, it's described as limitless. It stands in stark contrast to the small, restless, time-bound categories the mind is constantly inventing.
And here's where the trap is laid for pretty much everyone. The dialogues hammer this point home again and again. People live almost entirely in an illusory world of their images.
Completely dedicated to satisfying and admiring that image. We take this boundless, pure feeling of I am, and we immediately lock it down with conditions.
We put it in a cage.
We limit the absolute. The moment you say I am, and then add something to it, you've limited yourself. The seeker is constantly associating I am with these conditional attributes. I am a good parent. I am a successful professional.
Or even just I am someone with these habits and this specific memory.
Exactly. And all your problems, the need for security, the fear of loss, the struggle for survival, they're all problems of the body and the limited personality, the false overlay.
They only exist because you've mistakenly identified the boundless I am with that finite little biography.
It's the difference between being the ocean and insisting you are just one tiny measurable wave.
That's a great way to put it.
You've trapped yourself in a cage of definition. The huge insight here is that the moment you realize you are not just the body, those body-centric concerns, they start to lose their existential weight.
And the source gives that wonderful illustration of Maharaj himself. He kept his shop, he continued his life.
But he ceased to be merely a merchant. He had changed his identity anchor. He stopped searching for eternal life because he realized he already had it. He'd moved beyond the concept of I am the body.
And that is the powerful, practical realization. You don't have to go live in a cave. You don't have to abandon the world. You have to abandon your false relationship to the world.
The unconditioned observer takes over from the vulnerable, self-interested participant.
And this realization has a profound impact on our understanding of action itself, which this brings us to one of the most intellectually difficult sections, section 4, where Maharaj challenges the most fundamental law of the universe as we understand it, causality.
It's a huge hurdle.
I mean, it seems like common sense. Every effect has a cause. How does the non-dual view even begin to deal with that?
From the highest perspective, it doesn't. Maharaj asserts that causality, along with time and space, are strictly mental constructs.
Just ideas.
They arise and cease with the mind. There is no ultimate objective cause for the entire world. When you accept the premise that you are a separate individual living in a linear world, then you are, in his words, doomed to seek and find causes for everything.
Which is an endless and often pointless game.
An endless goose chase.
Wait, okay, I have to challenge that on behalf of anyone listening. If I drop a pen, gravity causes it to fall. That seems pretty real. If I work hard, I get a promotion. To say there is no causality, it seems to invalidate all human effort.
And that's the seeker's exact dilemma in the dialogue. The answer is nuanced. Causality functions perfectly within the manifested mental world.
So within the dream, the rules of the dream apply.
Absolutely. But the Jnanani, the realized one, sees that even the desire to drop the pen or the mechanism of gravity itself is part of a universal flow, a total happening that includes the consciousness that observes it.
So it's not separate.
The source suggests that if people truly grasped that nothing could happen unless the universe itself makes it happen, they would achieve so much more with far less energy.
Why less energy?
Because most of our energy is spent in resistance, in fear, worry, planning, regret. We operate under this illusion of being the individual doer, the deotel.
I must force this outcome.
Exactly. And this ignorance of true causality, of being merely a channel for universal action, it leads to all this unnecessary effort and all these flawed actions. When your action is in harmony with the whole, it's effortless. It's instantaneous. The moment you feel effort, he suggests, it is often a sign of resistance, of the small I trying to impose its will against the flow.
That reframes every single effortful action as potentially incorrect or unnecessary.
Yeah.
It suggests that surrender is the ultimate mechanism for success.
It is the mechanism for right action. When there is no self-imposed separation, the body-mind mechanism simply acts perfectly because it's aligned with the source. It's the mental interference, the calculation, the fear that causes the delay and the inefficiency.
Before we move on to the practical steps, Section 4 gives us this beautiful metaphor for how the mind and spirit connect in this framework.
Yes, the description of the metaphorical bridge. The mind, trapped in duality and analysis, it creates this vast abyss between the body and the spirit. It sees them as fundamentally separate.
But the heart crosses it.
The bridge, he says, is love. And love here represents the transition from that analytical, separating mental thought to a holistic, unified connection, the non-dual reality where no gulf exists to begin with.
That sets us up perfectly for part 2 then, the practical methodology. How do we, using these dialogues as a guide, actually begin the practice of self-inquiry and unmasking this false self? Let's start with the basics of meditation, as it's defined in Section 6.
The practice starts with a very practical, almost psychological goal. First, you have to become intensely aware of, and eventually comfortable with, your inner world. Thoughts, feelings, impulses.
Most people know the outside world, the world of sensation, far better than their own internal landscape.
Exactly. So meditation initially is just about introspection, creating a mirror for the mind.
But the ultimate goal isn't just about emotional regulation or stress relief.
Oh, far from it. The ultimate goal is to move past the content of the mind entirely and reach the very source of life and consciousness itself. And to do this, Maharaj refines the practice using the concept of the gunas.
The 3 fundamental qualities of nature: kamas, rajas, and sattva.
Right. Tamas is inertia, darkness. Rajas is agitation, passion. And sattva is harmony, light.
And what role does sattva play in this specific practice?
Meditation is defined as a sattvic action. It's not about restraining energy or forcing stillness. It's about aligning energy to eliminate the drag of tama's laziness, ignorance, and the frantic activity of raja's ambition, distraction.
He uses that powerful analogy of the sun.
He does. Pure sattva is always strong and radiant like the sun. It only seems obscured because you, the perceiver, are obscured by your own clouds and dust, which are the products of tamas and rajas.
So the work of meditation is eliminating the obscuration, not creating the light.
It's a subtle but crucial redefinition of spiritual effort. You're not generating light, you're just cleaning the window.
Precisely.
And that leads directly to the core technique, the witness state. In this practice, you step back. You step back from the experience and from the one having the experience into what he calls pure perception.
You're just observing the entire field of your consciousness without getting entangled.
Right.
What happens to the personality in that state? The one who says, I am this or I am that.
This is the critical transition. The identifying personality, it remains, but it's relegated to being an object in the field of perception. You don't become the witness, you merely see the mechanism of witnessing happening.
So it's one step further back.
The realization is that you are not the witness, but the space in which the witnessing mechanism operates. The identification with the I am that witnesses is finally broken, moving you beyond even the most subtle form of egoic identification.
Let's talk about how to apply this to our daily lives, specifically desires. Section 10 gives this refreshingly simple metric for filtering them.
It's highly pragmatic. Desires that lead to sorrow are wrong, those that bring happiness are right.
Simple enough.
But with that essential non-dual caveat, you cannot evaluate desires only based on your own immediate personal satisfaction. The happiness or sorrow of others has to be counted too.
So that immediately forces you out of selfish striving and into a kind of universal harmony.
It does. To successfully observe and judge a desire, you have to observe its history, recall past experiences with it, and think clearly and deeply about its consequences for the interconnected whole, not just for you.
So self-knowledge isn't just about knowing my own inner motives. It's about seeing my inner motives reflected in the world I experience.
And that leads to the radical core of self-inquiry, which is an act of relentless subtraction. To know yourself, he says, means knowing everything that you are not.
This completely reverses the traditional quest for identity. We're usually told to collect attributes, achieve titles, accumulate experiences to build a self.
And Maharaj insists the self is already complete. His most radical statement is, you are already that which you are.
So discovery means realizing there is nothing to discover.
Exactly. The entire practice is just eliminating the false identities. The body, the memories, the habits, the expectations. The only thing you need to achieve is the elimination of the false, which allows that natural, spontaneous state to just shine through.
What is the single most direct instruction for beginning this process of elimination?
It's focusing the mind simply on the feeling of, I am. That's it.
Just the feeling.
Pure existence, totally devoid of content, not I am good or I am here, just the raw sensation of being. This practice, sometimes called Nisarga Yoga, the natural way, is the simplest path, provided it is approached with steadfastness of purpose and sincerity. The dialogues repeat this point over and over. This sincerity, this intense desire for truthaskranya ustramlanost, is the single golden key required.
Okay, so once that sincerity is established, what does the realized state actually feel like? Section 12 details Maharaj's own transformation after he met his guru.
He describes a complete and irrevocable shift. It happened pretty quickly, actually, after about 3 years of focused practice. He said pleasure and pain, they just lost their power.
They were still there. He still felt them.
They were still registered by the body, yes, but they no longer generated any identification or emotional disturbance. He became free from desires and fear. He viewed the manifested world not as solid reality, but as waves rising and falling in this vast ocean of pure awareness, which he called Parama Akasha.
And he recognized that everything was I as consciousness, Chitakasha.
Right, and this shifts life from a battle to an effortless flow. The body-mind mechanism just operates automatically. Life becomes just happening, like digestion or sweating processes that occur without your conscious will or intervention.
The jnani, the realized person, sheds that feeling of being the doer.
They do. They'll often refer to their physical form as the body, not my body, and the mind, not my mind. That linguistic shift, it reflects a profound psychological distance. The identification has been broken.
But the dialogues do mention that old reactions can still surface because of the psychological burden of personality. How is that reconciled with this effortless flow?
It's reconciled through awareness. The body mind is just an acquired mechanism, so it's deep seated habits, it's samskaras. They still exist, like programs running in the background.
Mm.
A loud noise might still cause the body to jump.
But the reaction is different.
The realized person immediately notices the reaction and rejects the identification with it. There's no internal monologue saying, oh, I'm startled or I must react. The reaction surfaces, but the Janani remains the silent observer, and the reaction just dissipates instantly because it has no fuel from the ego to sustain it.
That distinction between the observer and the reaction is subtle. And it brings us to maybe the most complex semantic hurdle in the source material, the difference between awareness and consciousness.
This is crucial for advanced understanding. Let's break it down carefully. Awareness, or osaznani, is the primary ground.
The backdrop.
It's absolute, unchanging, silent, without beginning or end. The general matrix of all possible experience. And critically, awareness can exist without consciousness. The classic example is deep, dreamless sleep.
Okay, so what about consciousness?
Consciousness, saznani or chit, is secondary. It's dependent. It's defined as a reflection on the surface of awareness, like light hitting a mirror. It is fundamentally a state of duality, and it always requires content.
You're always conscious of something.
Always. Consciousness is divided, changeable, and bound to the body-mind apparatus.
So if awareness is the infinite light source, consciousness is the beam of light that illuminates the contents of the room and disappears when the bulb, the body, burns out.
That's a helpful analogy. Awareness is the screen, consciousness is the movie and the light of the projector, but it requires the screen to reflect upon. In the realized state, what remains at the core, at the very center of the jhani's consciousness, is that which is beyond name, beyond form, and even beyond consciousness itself.
What description can the human mind possibly attach to that? How do you describe something that's beyond everything?
He attempts to define it by absence. He describes it as a hole in the paper through which the light of awareness floods the mental space.
So it's not something added.
No, it's the realization that the paper, the mind, the body was always the limiting factor. This core is then described as the rock solid, dense, homogeneous, and immutable mass of pure awareness. It is pure being, utterly free from the need for content or mental templates.
Okay, let's take that realization of pure being and apply it to the world around us. In part 3, the source immediately confronts the seeker's conception of the world, asking in section 9, what world are you talking about?
That is just a devastating question for the ego. Maharaj contends that the world the seeker perceives is infinitesimally small and exclusively personal. The world you inhabit is not some vast objective cosmos.
That's a private construction.
A personalized private construction built entirely on your memory, your expectations, and your interpretations.
But wait a minute. If I walk outside, the streets, the buildings, other people, they are all verifiably there for billions of other people. How can he claim this shared physical reality is just my personal projection?
He clarifies. The idea of a common universal world is itself part of the seeker's personal world. The universe does not exist to validate you. He says, you created the common world yourself to consider yourself a part of it.
We operate under a kind of tacit agreement of shared perception.
But the meaning and the impact of that world are entirely private. He says you must treat the entire perceived world as a dream, a construction built on fleeting subjective processes.
This perspective has massive implications for suffering. If the world is a private dream, then the suffering within it has to be self-inflicted.
That is the inescapable conclusion. All suffering is man-made. It's a product of our identification with this limited, time-bound, dualistic world that we have constructed for ourselves.
And what about karma?
The source addresses karma not as punishment, but as the universe requiring equilibrium. When human actions cause imbalance, karma is the healing hand of God, asserting justice by ensuring consequences return to their source, forcing the doer to learn and restore that balance.
Let's go back to the philosophical challenge in section 14. If the world is fundamentally a subjective dream, why does the seeker still feel so compelled to argue that everything must have causes?
Because the seeker has already bought into the premise of the mental construct. By creating a world of time, space, and causation for yourself, you are then doomed to seek and find causes for everything. You can't escape the parameters of the dream while you're still identified with the dreamer.
The realized state exists outside those parameters.
Exactly. Outside, where reality is understood as the causeless source of all causes.
The ultimate relevance to the listener, especially one who's going through a hard time, is the absolute responsibility this view places on them. Who is responsible for the world of suffering you live in?
Maharaj doesn't mince words. He places the power and therefore the responsibility entirely on the seeker. He says, "Who else knows about the world you live in? I and everyone else appear and disappear in your world. We are in your power."
That's a heavy statement.
It means the restrictions, the pain, the limitations you feel, they are maintained by your own mind's adherence to those constructs. The ultimate unconditional freedom is realizing that you are always free. You are conscious and you are free to be conscious.
So, if the solution is breaking that identification, how is this constant, simple focusing on I am supposed to work against the vast machinery of the mind? Seems like such a small tool for such a big job.
It works through attrition and realignment. You are constantly turning from the content, the experience, to the container, the experiencer. By constantly holding that feeling I am without adding any modifiers, you effectively starve the conditional ego.
You stop feeding it stories.
You do. The goal is for the mind and the feeling to merge, not into a new thought, but into a constant background awareness. It's about perseverance until that sense of I am is deeply rooted and remains automatically no matter what chaos is happening in your thoughts, speech, or external actions. It replaces the old habitual background thought of I am the body.
Let's address the end game of that body. The finality of existence in this view. Section 4 revisits the nature of death. If the world is a dream, what truly dies when the body ceases?
Death is defined very strictly. The life processes in a specific body cease. Integration ends, decomposition begins. The conscious entity, the limited experiencer tied to that body's mind, disappears with the body's disappearance.
So consciousness is mortal and bound to the vehicle.
Correct.
What about continuity? If I cease to exist as this conscious entity, how is there any connection to a potential future life? Or is there one?
While the specific consciousness is mortal, he says life, with a capital L, remains. Life is the universal flow. When life creates a new body, a new conscious entity emerges. And what links the sequence is what he calls the prichinoi tilo.
The causal body, or body of memory.
Right. And it's not a soul. It's more like a subtle imprint, a cloud of linked images, desires, and actions. It's the residue of the past identification that serves as the seed for the next manifestation.
So the weight of our current habits and thoughts doesn't just disappear. It informs the nature of the next form.
Exactly. It's the blueprint, but it does not represent the absolute self. The ultimate reality remains untouched. He says, only the body dies. Life does not die, consciousness does not die, reality does not die. Moreover, life is never so alive as after death. The witness, the supreme self, is outside that cycle of birth and death entirely.
Moving into part 4, let's tackle the universal pain points.
Yeah.
Desire and fear. Section 59 asserts something that sounds like a paradox. The desire for bliss ironically produces pain.
It's the ultimate spiritual catch-22. All pain is generated by desire, specifically the desire for a state other than the present. We desire bliss, and the failure to immediately attain permanent bliss creates suffering.
The expectation gap.
Right. If you stop desiring pleasure, you forget pain because you eliminate that gap. He says the root of all pain is self-ignorance. Not knowing the self is already blissful. And the root of desire, as distorted as it is the essential striving to find that self.
And since most people, as Section 34 points out, define happiness as just physical or mental satisfaction, which is always fleeting, they get stuck in this perpetual cycle of restlessness.
Exactly. Seeking and dissatisfaction.
So how do we break that cycle?
The ultimate solution is observation, which he frames as a kind of non-action. He's adamant about this. There are no conditions to meet, no rituals to perform. The practice is simple observation. Just watch what is happening and remember that you are beyond it.
So any effort that's born from urges or desires or a sense of failure, that just drags you back into the cycle.
It drags you right back into duality.
Yeah.
You have to cease being what you currently believe yourself to be, the seeker, the desirer, the doer.
That sounds incredibly liberating, but also very difficult to maintain in a world that demands action and engagement from us. Let's connect this back to the concept of love, which you mentioned earlier acts as the bridge.
Love, in this context, is not an emotion, it's a state of being. It's defined by the absence of separation or distinction. True love is seeing the self in all, and all in the self. If you realize the entire world is your own creation, then loving the world is a simple, direct reflection of loving yourself, the true self.
The dialogues mention that all desires arise from the self, and the initial love is love of the self, the I am. So, how do we love the self wisely, as he puts it, instead of foolishly?
Foolish self love leads to indulgence, attachment, the belief that the body must be satisfied at all costs. But foolish love can also lead to extreme asceticism, punishing the body out of disgust.
Both are extremes.
Both are based on a misunderstanding. Wise love is based on understanding. It's realizing the limitless nature of the I am and allowing that true nature to express itself effortlessly through the body mind rather than imposing all these external rules upon it.
And the distinction between love and sex is made very clear as well.
Love is the state of unity. Sex is energy. It's the most powerful creative energy we have. If it's understood correctly, if there is wise love, they are not in conflict. The pain and tension in intimate relationships arise from overvaluing happiness within that dualistic framework, demanding that the other person complete you.
Whereas true, non dual love.
When it encounters the suffering of others, it may bring pain, but that pain is immediately transformed into compassion because it's born from a sense of shared unity.
This entire model rests on maintaining a state of pure observation. Section 19 has this beautiful illustration of it by looking at the process of artistic creation.
Yes, if an artist is fully realized, they don't claim, I am painting this. They simply see the creation of the picture happen.
Consciousness itself is the artist.
Consciousness is the greatest artist, constantly projecting the world, and the human artist merely observes this universal process unfold through their physical form. They are a channel, not the source of the act.
When someone turns this kind of observation inward, they often report seeing, well, chaos. Several personalities fighting each other for possession of the body. What is that inner conflict?
Those are the samskaras, the tendencies, the habits, the accumulated mental programs of the mind. Maharaj emphasizes that the personality, the vyakti, the external self, is never the true subject. You merely see a personality arise and act.
And the witness? The vyakta.
The witness acts as a temporary bridge between that pure, absolute awareness and the diverse, conditioned consciousness of the personality. That internal conflict you feel is just the mind being subjected to conflicting programming, all of which is its own cause, rooted in that initial false identification with the body.
Let's move into part 5 and look at the actual mechanics of spiritual practice, or sadhana, and realization. Let's start with Maharaj's own path, as he describes it.
His path was defined by radical simplicity and absolute obedience to his guru. The instruction was singular. Focus only on the feeling I am and nothing else.
That's it.
That's it. He said he spent hours, not days or weeks, but hours over time with nothing in his mind but that single unadorned statement of existence. This is the very essence of Nisarga Yoga, his simple, natural yoga. You just patiently fixate on that always present feeling of I am until the clouds that are covering the mind naturally part.
So sadhana is not about mastering techniques or acquiring powers.
Absolutely not. The dialogues clarify that sadhana is the search for what must be discarded. It's about intentionally reminding yourself of your pure being, which is not anything particular, nor is it the sum of particulars. The intentional act is the negation of the false. The goal is complete, unreserved emptiness.
What then is the necessary role of the guru if the path is so simple and internal?
The guru points the way home. The student has to follow the instructions with faith and without reservation because the guru represents the true self speaking to the seeker.
So the guru is a kind of meeting point.
A temporary meeting point between the seeker and the true self. It's a necessary factor for initiating the process. However, the change itself is ultimately self-initiated. It comes as an internal, self-generated wave of non-attachment or compassion from within. The guru provides the instruction and the faith, but the work is yours alone.
Section 69 presents a powerful challenge to those of us who view spiritual life as this gradual, measurable progress.
It's very blunt. If a seeker claims to understand the philosophy completely, the advice is do nothing, just be. Do not do anything, be.
And no baby steps.
The dialogues stress there are no degrees of realization. It's not a process of climbing stairs, it's a sudden, irrevocable shift into a new dimension. Once the realization occurs, the previous dimensions, the world of struggle, time, and duality, are seen as empty abstractions. It's an instantaneous jump that fundamentally contradicts the whole idea of slow, measurable spiritual growth.
What is the resulting state for the person who's realized this? Section 48 calls it Jagrat Sushupti, conscious sleep.
This is a profound state where deep peace and inner stillness, which is sushupti or deep sleep, are maintained simultaneously with full awareness, jagrat, or wakefulness.
So the mind is profoundly quiet.
Resting in its source, yet the person is fully functional and responsive. The texts emphasize that this silence, this absence of mental activity and internal chatter, is the main factor of growth. It's what leads to wisdom and power. Activity requires content. Silence allows awareness to flood the space.
And finally, section 73 deals with the ultimate cessation, the great death, Mahamrityu. This is the death of the mind itself.
When the mind dies, time ends. Immortality is not living forever in this body, it's freedom from the feeling I am as the limited ego. This realized state is described as infinitely more real and filled with happiness than consciousness itself.
And the mind is used as a tool to get there.
The mind, being a tool that requires a goal, is often promised a reward, liberation, eternal life. But ultimately, the cessation of the false is its own reward. Freedom is the only reality.
That transition is critical. Let's use part 6 to go deeper into the nature of the absolute and the characteristics of this selfless state. Section 55 describes Maharaj's current experience as non-experience. What does that mean?
It means he's rooted in potentiality, not in specific manifestation. He knows the source of all experiences, the wheat grain, but he doesn't focus on the countless specific forms those experiences take, like the various breads and cakes. He exists in the potentiality which encompasses all experience without being defined by any single one of them.
If he's in a state of non-experience, how does he interact with the world? How does a realized person genuinely help other people?
He argues that true help comes through the person's simple existence, by transcending the very need to help.
How does that work?
The realization acts like a window. A window is defined by the absence of a wall, and that absence allows light and air to enter. The realized person is not the one who acts. He exists to be aware of what is happening. His very presence acts as a silent transmission of truth and equilibrium, guiding others toward their own source without any effortful intervention. Action only happens if it's necessary, and it just flows effortlessly.
Let's clarify the structure of the universal self using those 3 Sanskrit terms from the source. Vyakti, Vyakta, Avyakta.
Think of it as a hierarchy of reality. Vyakti is the external self, the fleeting personality, the body-mind. It's a projection.
And Vyakta.
Vyakta is the internal self, the witness. It's an expression of the supreme self, but it's still defined by the act of witnessing.
And Avyakta is the ultimate?
Avyakta is the supreme self, the absolute everything and nothing, beyond any expression. The concept of I am, in the limited egoic sense, is the skin that separates Vyakti from that ultimate reality. It's a concept that arose after the initial body identification.
Once that concept is dropped, life continues, but problems cease.
Because problems are only defined by the separated ego.
This leads us to the core of section 93, the illusion of being the doer, the Deyatel. Why is that illusion so powerful and so painful?
The seeker, who is fundamentally only the light, feels this profound sense of incompleteness and burden because they believe they are the ones initiating and controlling events. In reality, things are done to the person, not by them, in the universal flow.
The feeling of being the light dissolves this burden.
When you accept yourself as the light, you accept everything that happens as part of your own total self, which is the very definition of universal love.
That circular relationship between knowledge and love is central to sections 46 and 52.
To know the self is intrinsically to love the self, because the self is pure, boundless existence. And since your perceived world is your own creation, love of the world is a direct reflection of that self-love. To know is to love, and to love is to know. They're inseparable sides of the same coin.
And the path to integrating this is summarized as the path of acceptance.
Be happy, give happiness. That is the rhythm of life, as Section 52 says. The key transition to realization is seeing your world as it is, not as you imagine it or demand it to be. This eliminates the expectation gap that fuels suffering and just allows the natural rhythm of universal harmony to take over.
Let's consolidate the simplest final instruction given in section 96, the ultimate act of sadhana.
It's the ultimate simplicity. Realization is just waiting in the heart for you to simply notice it. The instruction is to discard your memories and expectations. Just be ready in complete defenselessness and emptiness.
And the text also acknowledges the role of the three gunas.
Right. The manifest world needs them all. Sattva, light, tamas, inertia, and rajas, activity. They are an inseparable whole matter energy life flowing in consciousness. The path requires acknowledging them, but aligning with sattva, which is the radiance of your true nature.
In our final part, let's synthesize these insights, starting with the importance of the eternal now, which is discussed in sections 85 and 96.
The mind is a machine built for time travel. It constantly oscillates between the past memory, regret, and the future expectation, fear. And in doing so, it completely misses the now.
Eternity exists only in the brief, indivisible moment of now.
That's it.
And how do we anchor ourselves there?
By focusing on the I am now, by seeing that all other concepts, I am this, I am that, are illusory, transient additions built by the mind. The pursuit of realization is the pursuit of truth, and that pursuit inevitably destroys the subjective world in which one lives.
But the dialogue assures us.
If this pursuit is driven by love for truth, there is absolutely nothing to fear because only the false is being destroyed.
Finally, let's try one last time to describe the absolute itself, the ultimate state of Yakta.
The ultimate state is defined by its transcendence of all categories. It's beyond all description, beyond existence and non-existence. It's simultaneously yes and no, inside and outside, creator and destroyer. It's unfathomably real.
So it can't be grasped by the mind or the senses.
Because they are tools of duality. Reality can't be grasped by them. The only way to know it is to be it.
So if the mind tries to define it as peace or bliss, that's already a limitation.
Precisely. When all differences, all mental reactions, all definitions disappear, what remains is reality, simple and whole. Maharaj uses that powerful analogy of taste. The pure taste of the mouth is defined by the absence of other tastes. It's what remains when sweet, sour, bitter, and salty are all gone. The realization is the cessation of the need to taste anything at all.
This entire deep dive has reinforced this profound, radical call to action found in section 73. You are already immortal.
You make yourself mortal by believing you are the body, by accepting the body's limitations and the mind's time constraints. Freedom is not an acquirable property, something you can earn or possess. It's a completely new dimension of being that you step into by dropping the old.
The ultimate goal, then, is integrity. Slosnost.
It is the unification of the self. Integrity means seeing yourself not merely as the limited personality, the Vyakti, but as the source, the screen, the light, and the viewer of the whole cosmic play. The path requires radical self-honesty and that intense, focused desire for truth, that sincere aspiration that allows the false self to simply collapse.
And as we conclude this deep dive, consider this provocative thought, one that challenges your most fundamental assumptions about existence, memory, and time. You can't assert with certainty that you were without consciousness during deep sleep. You only know that you don't remember any content. If memory is that unreliable, if the mind itself is an unreliable narrator, can you truly assert that you were born or that you will certainly die? Your only absolute constant truth is the silent statement you are always making. I am. Begin the search for the timeless, immovable self that exists now.